Through the gorge was a place where no one in the small town of Evermore went unless absolutely necessary. The narrow path winding between the sharp rocks had long been overgrown with moss, and the walls of the gorge were shadowed, even on the sunniest day. The locals avoided talking about it, and the rare travelers who dared to look inside returned shaken, sometimes disappearing altogether. When the three friends, Adam, Rebecca and Tom, decided to explore the gorge, no one supported their idea. "There's nothing but trouble waiting for you out there," warned Agnes, the old woman who owned the local grocery store. But the young people dismissed it. They were attracted by stories of ancient artifacts supposedly hidden in the depths of the gorge, and rumors of a mystical spring that grants wishes. Saturday morning they gathered at the entrance to the gorge, armed with flashlights, ropes, and cameras. Tom made jokes, as always, to break the tension, but even he glanced nervously at the thick fog billowing at their feet. "It's just rocks," he said, encouraging the others. "Nothing mystical. Let's hurry before it gets dark." But the farther they went, the stranger the place became. The sound of their footsteps echoed, as if the gorge were much larger than it appeared from the outside. Carved symbols began to appear on the walls, circles, triangles, spirals. "Someone left this here years ago," Adam suggested, touching one of the notches. But his face tensed when he noticed that the lines in the pattern seemed to shake slightly under his fingers. Rebecca stopped, pointing forward. "Look, what's that?" On the ground in front of them was an old wooden chest. It looked as if it had been there for centuries, but there was no dust or moss on it. Tom, always ready for adventure, went over and opened the lid. The only thing inside was a mirror framed in silver. But as soon as he took it in his hands, a whisper came from the mirror. "You've taken a step. Now there's no turning back." Tom threw the mirror to the ground, but it didn't shatter. Instead, it spun, rose into the air, and hovered in front of them. Shadows began to appear on its surface, forming into shapes. "What is it?" Rebecca whispered, grabbing Adam's hand. "I think it's us," he answered quietly. Their faces were reflected in the mirror, but instead of the calm backdrop of the gorge, there were pillars of fire behind them, and the sky was black as coal. "It's just a glitch," Tom tried to reassure himself, but his voice trembled. As the image faded, the mirror fell, and beside it on the ground were words scratched out as if by claws: "He who mirrors himself will find the door to truth." Rebecca looked at her friends. "I don't want to go any further. This place, it's not right." But Tom was stubborn. "We're already here. Don't you want to know what this is all about?" Adam, albeit reluctantly, agreed with Tom. Rebecca only followed them because she was afraid to be alone. After walking a few steps, Adam, Rebecca and Tom found themselves in front of a stone archway. It was imposing, carved from an ancient but mysterious material that glowed with a faint blue light. The stones from which the arch was constructed seemed too smooth to be natural. No matter how much the sun shone, the arch had not been exposed to the effects of time, it had not become covered in moss, cracked, or lost its shape. It was as if it were from another time, another world. It can't just be an accident," Rebecca whispered, pressing her hand to her chest. "Do you feel it too?" "Yes, it's something incredible," Adam said, looking around the place. "But what is that archway? And why is it glowing? Tom, as always, was the first to decide to check it out for himself. He stepped closer to the arch and examined the stones closely, feeling their coolness under his fingers. Rebecca and Adam stayed behind, peering restlessly at the strange, shiny symbols that covered the surface of the arch. One of them, in the shape of an unfurled spiral, was in the center. Maybe it's just a decoration, Tom suggested. But as soon as he touched the stone in the center, the arch instantly flickered with light. It wasn't just a bright flash, the arch began to vibrate, and a gap in space opened up before them. There was no void or another world beyond it, as they might have expected, but a strange, translucent veil, like liquid metal or glowing mist, moving slowly. "Tom, what did you do?" Rebecca exclaimed, jumping away from the archway. But Tom didn't answer. He was already too preoccupied with this unusual phenomenon. He took a step towards the veil, and with every step the arch seemed to draw him in. Flashes of light, strange rustling, and indistinct sounds, like distant humming, surrounded him. Adam and Rebecca decided to follow him, hoping they could deal with this unknown threat together. As soon as they were inside the archway, the world around them quickly changed. They saw that they were no longer in the ravine they had just passed through. The landscape in front of them was more like a desert, endless sands and cliffs, but instead of sunlight, there was a faint, dead light. Dark clouds hung in the sky, and the cliffs themselves were a strange, ominous shape. Adam felt a chill run through his bones and tugged on Rebecca's hand. "This can't be true," he said, feeling the tension building inside him. "We've crossed over into some other world." "What the hell?" Tom started to turn around. His voice broke, however, when he saw the sky. Instead of clouds or sun, there was something else, unimaginable and terrifying. It was a huge eye, like the gaze of some ancient creature watching them from above. "That's impossible," Adam said, trying to snap out of his daze. "We have to find a way back." But how? Everything around them was alien. And they stood in this space, among incomprehensible shapes and monstrous shadows, not knowing where to go or what to do. As soon as the three friends were inside this strange world, they realized that nothing could be the same as before. Even the air here was different, not fresh, but thick, as if filled with something heavy that forced them to breathe with effort. And every shadow that fell from their feet seemed long and deformed, as if this world lived according to its own laws. Before them stood a large structure, reminiscent of an ancient temple or ruin. The stones of which it was built still glowed, but not brightly. It was a dim light, like the faint glow of bioluminescent creatures. "We should go that way," Tom said, pointing to the huge doors that were ajar. They were empty, but a strange sensation urged them forward. As soon as they entered the room, the air became even denser and the lighted stones began to shimmer. In the center stood a figure, a tall creature shrouded in a black cloak. Its face was hidden, but a cold, eerie light emanated from beneath the hood. "Who are you?" Adam asked, daring to be the first to speak. The creature raised a hand and the space around them began to warp. It was as if all of reality, its nooks and crannies and edges began to spread out like a liquid. The creature spoke. "You have come through the portal. You came for knowledge. You sought truth. But knowledge requires sacrifice. All three of them froze. "What do we have to give?" Rebecca asked, her voice full of fear. "You must decide. One desire. One desire. But you have a choice to make." Images appeared in their eyes. Tom saw wealth and power, Adam saw answers to questions about the nature of the universe, and Rebecca saw her lost family. And then, the creature spoke again. "Make your choice. But be warned, every step along this path is a step into the unknown. And none of you will return as you were before." Tom couldn't resist. He walked over to the creature and held out his hand to his vision, the huge city of gold and gems he had always wanted to build. He chose power and wealth. As soon as his hand touched the airspace in front of him, an unimaginable feeling swept over his body, his gaze went blank and his body immediately petrified. He was unable to move. He was stuck in his choices. Rebecca and Adam stared at him shocked. The creatures immediately disappeared and the space around them transformed again. "What do we do?" Adam asked, deciding at the last moment to abandon all suggestions. Rebecca looked at Tom's empty figure and realized, her wish was not something she wanted to choose. The price was too great. "We have to go back," she said. But an archway appeared in their path again, taking them back to reality. The truth remained unexplored, but they didn't look for answers. When they returned to the real world, the gorge looked empty. There were no more symbols, archways, or portals. Tom remained lying on the ground. His eyes were open, but there was no life in them. Adam and Rebecca never discussed what had happened again, but there was forever a shadow in their eyes of what they had seen beyond reality. Some nights Adam dreamed that he was still standing in front of that figure and a voice whispered to him, "You'll come back when you're ready. The truth is waiting."